So in that sense, the one way to approach it would be to create alternative structures, alternative communities that would have some sort of moderation against these people so that they couldn't get the like overhand.
What would something like that look like? I'm curious.
Yeah, that would be pretty much a really good question. Like, yeah, what would that look like?
What, like where those narcissistic grifters didn't have power?
Yeah.
Right, or even something that would
Well,
deter them.
I think we talked about it earlier in the Discord. Like Camelot, you know, that there's stories about trying to be like that. I don't know if in reality it has, or that information was burned or lost, or I don't know, but you know, I get the sense that people built these great things together, and I don't think it was all just like horrible tyranny and people being awful to each other constantly all the time. I think there have been golden ages that have been lost. That's probably a whole other topic, but kind of goes into like, well, I think there are societies, civilizations that did exist where they did not allow these people to have power. And I think the evidence of that is still left written in stone, you know, everywhere, really.
I think that's a good point, especially when it comes to like older civilizations that had a big focus on something that was trans personal. You know, like the focus of the organization of the civilization was something that was bigger than any one individual. So even the individual at the top was representing something that was a reflection of all people. You know,
Yeah.
and I think we see that in like religious civilizations and things like that. You know, because it's focusing on something that's beyond yourself. And a conversation that I realize I have a lot with a lot of people is how religion gave humans in ancient times something to focus on that was bigger than themselves. It's like, okay, I could make a farm for me and my family, and of course that matters to me. It doesn't matter to this other family that's next to me. But if I want to make a temple that has something to do more than my family, more than their family, singular family, then when we get together, we can make something that's really special and beautiful.
Yeah, like there's a lot of evidence that the Egyptians ate the blue water lily and were like tripping on psychedelics, and then the Mayans, they were doing all that stuff. I think that has something to do with it. You know, it evoking a religious experience, and people have done that a lot with that type of thing. I think you can do it in other ways. You know, I've heard some crazy stuff about that Kundalini yoga. I've never tried that. But, you know, there's other breathing exercises now. I have done the Wim Hof thing, and I see you guys have something here about it. Now, that has tripped me out and put me into some psychedelic states for sure. And I think people that do that together on Sunday or whatever, on a day they pick, and deal with their bullshit together and talk about it, I think they become great civilizations. I think that's the beginning. It can get way more complicated after that, but I think we're seeing that starting to happen again. But I think we forget how old we are. I think about how long we've been here in this form, like how our body is, and with language and walking around and building stuff. I'm like, it's so long. It's like a hole almost of darkness, like how long we've been around, rising and falling. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, but for sure, like many civilizations have come and gone, and I don't know. Like I've started looking into it. Also, especially after watching the Aeon series that Uberboy had made, and started really digging deep into it. And yeah, just yeah, I'm feeling that like we're now at that point where where the cycle might be just starting over. Like, like the shift from how they put it from Pisces to Aquarius, and I kind of think, I don't know, like I'm starting to see that arise around me at least. But I mean, might just be the people I associate with.
I think that's a lot of it too. I've cut out a lot of people that this is the baseline for me. Like, whenever something good is happening to you, and then your friends aren't happy too, and they say like must be nice or something like that, you got to like get away from those people. And I've noticed that's like a common denominator that I can reference to be like, this is a red flag. Whenever there's something good is happening to them, I'm happy. I'll throw them a party, surprise party or something. You know what I mean? Gotta be around people that are happy when you're happy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also, I don't know, in general has to do with just looking at like bringing it back to like archetypes again, with like what the king archetype really represents in its like proper form, and it's like setting like the proper boundaries that, like for your own mind, about like, this is what I tolerate, this is what I don't tolerate, this is how I'm going to live my life, kind of approach. And that you don't tolerate that like bullshit from like either grifters or narcissists. You have like clear, proper like boundaries and a good structure that you try to maintain. And maybe just look for the red flags and just make sure that they stay out of control. But maybe in that sense, at the other hand, it's also like I've been thinking like, well, if I would create a space in which people are really aware or like reflecting on themselves a lot, and coming together really, and to form that type of community, that maybe it would be very difficult for such a like a narcissist or some grifter to just come in there and try to take control. It's like
Yeah, that's my hope too. Yeah, just the more people that speak up and be like, "Hey, this," or just have friendly debates. It doesn't even have to. They had these old ancient Platonic dialogues are meant to be like, I'm going to set up this argument, this Iron Man argument. It's not me. I'm not going to take it personally if you attack this idea. This is an idea I'm producing, and we're going to simulate a battle between these two ideas. Now people just take it so personally, and get, I don't know, it gets out of hand, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, and it really started to make me wonder, like, why, or like, like they're clinging to that idea, and it's as if that idea is them. It's like they're kind of there's not that difference anymore. And maybe it has to do with something deeper in that sense. Maybe I used to talk a lot to one friend of mine who looked into sociology a lot, because that's what he does. And he talked a lot about people people with trauma, but also people that are, for instance, insecure and don't have that proper structure around them for that forms like belonging and meaning, they then end up clinging to such beliefs so hard that they cannot not really part with it, and that they, in that sense, become then so aggressive because it's like the lower part of their brain, the lower part of their brain gets like sort of connected to it. It's like if you attack that belief, you attack
Trauma.
the trauma, and in that sense, it brings out the survival response. Basically, it's like their life
Wow,
depends on.
I've never made that connection. That's really heavy, man. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. When I piece together memories of interacting with people like that, you're totally right. And then it makes it impossible to change anybody's mind. They have a permanent subjective morality based upon that trauma or something. But I have known people that have gone through serious traumas and then they, get out of it and they self-individuate. But I think individual self-individuated people are really rare anyway. And I've had this talk with people before, and I'll bring up this subject too. Do you think that there is a set limit of people that are able to self-individuate? And then other people are like, oh, he's an individual. I can just kind of go on autopilot. There's no need for me to self-individuate. And then also, if everyone did self-individuate, I guess people have brought up there wouldn't be people to work. There wouldn't be a natural society like we have known before. There would be everybody going in a totally different, separate direction. And, would that be a bad thing?
I think that's really interesting. That's a really interesting question. I think at the least there's people that tend to want to individuate more, or you could even say, I mean, what is individuation? It's like conscious self-reflection. It's being aware of your reflection, not just reflecting, but like reflecting and then taking a step back to look upon that reflection as well. And that's kind of like the process of individuation. I think there's people that naturally are going to want to individuate more or going to want to reflect more, but there's also like a big barrier to wanting to do that because the process of individuation, the process of self-reflection is not a pretty one. It's like everyone wants to have a good body. Not everybody wants to put in the work to get a good body. And when you see someone that has a good body, you have to respect the effort that they put in to get there. But, like not everyone is going to have that drive to do that. I think in general, it'd be better if more people did do that. It'd be better if that was like one of the values that we held on to as a society, as a civilization in general, the importance of self-reflection. And I think more people are learning that now. But at the same time, it's really hard. It's really hard. And I think one thing too that we have to keep in mind with stuff like this is compassion for other people. Like it's easy for people that have reflected and have gone through that suffering that it puts you through and opening up old trauma. Because and I think in general, life is traumatic for everyone in some way. And self-reflection is having to look at those traumas and see how those traumas have affected the way that you view the world now. So to keep your eyes open and to look back at that, and having done that already to some extent, you know that it's painful and it's not easy. It's like the Oedipus story. He wanted to take his eyes out after finding out the truth. And that's kind of what it's like to individuate. It's some points you see amazing parts of yourself, and other points you see terrible things of yourself. And both of them are parts of yourself that you have to accept if you're going to individuate. So I think when we see people that haven't gone into that process or haven't done much of it, it's important to be compassionate about where they're at also, because it's a painful place. And yourself before you had gone into that process, you probably made those similar mistakes. So I think it's important to have that compassion as well.
For the entire episode, please check out the description or click on the end screen. And maybe see you next time.